We're happy to have Scott Foster with us this evening. As you know, Scott Foster has spent the last 25 years in the NBA, officiating at a high level. We're happy to have him showcase from the Maryland area. Scott's a graduate of University of Maryland and Magruder High School. He's just been an incredible person to be able to educate and teach officials and bring officials along. And we're just really happy to have him there this evening. So without further ado, wanted to introduce Scott Foster. Scott, if you can come in and just say hello to everybody, and let's talk a little bit more about the subject for this evening.
Hey, happy to be here. And like every referee, whenever you ask a referee what season they're in, they always tell you the next year. So I'm in my 28th year in the NBA. So you gypped me out of 3 years there. Anyway, no. So Sean asked me to come on tonight, and you know, I've been to a lot of these clinics and a lot of these Zooms, and you know, people always want to, hey, why don't you talk about nutrition or talk about getting ready for the season? And you know what? That's not my thing. So my thing is awareness. I like to talk about red flags that help us be aware during games, and those are the things keeping our games from getting to big pitfalls and seeing and heading them off at the pass. So I have a few things to share with you tonight. I have about 10 plays, and so in the chat, you're more than welcome to ask questions. Sean will be monitoring the questions and comments, and when we get a pause, Sean, you can just interject any question that somebody might have. And then if somebody really is like, oh my God, I have something I have to say, go ahead and raise your hand, and we'll see you up there in the right corner or left corner, and we'll let you speak. So without delaying any longer, let's just talk about the red flag list. So a lot of people ask me about red flag list. What a red flag list is that years ago, Joe Crawford would say to me, oh my God, that's a red flag. And so in the NBA, the very first red flag of a game is something as simple as we throw a jump ball up, there's a violation, and the game clock goes from 11:59 to 12. Just like in your game, it goes from 8 to 7:59, but it goes from 20 to 11:59. So the red flag is to show how sharp you are with your awareness of the game is that I need to reset the game clock to 12. I need to reset the game clock to 20, or in 8 if you're in high school. So I could send you my red flag list, but it wouldn't mean a hill of beans to you because the NBA rules are so much different than your rules. But everyone should start to prepare a red flag list so that you're the person on the game with the answer as soon as it happens. So Sean, if you don't mind sharing your screen with my red flag list, I can kind of give you some examples that might be on your red flag list. And this thing has really helped me. If some of you remember the game last year where the Phoenix Suns drew up a miraculous dunk at the end of the game, there in the NBA rules, there were about 5 red flags in that game where protests could have happened had we not been on our game. And so there's so much going on in crisis situations that you have to have a checklist. So in the NBA, and I don't want to talk too much on the NBA, but I'm just going to go off your guys' games. You know, when you had your 6th foul in the first quarter or the first half of a high school game, your red flags should be, hey, we have penalty. Or if you have the 5th foul, you have a foul to give, so you want to communicate that to your partners. When we have definitive amounts of time in the NBA with violations and stuff like that, 24-second violation or not 8-second violation, we will always reset our clocks back to the original amount of time. When we go to replay, we can't have subs. So there's all these different things. And right now, if you want to, you can put a red flag for, say, a high school or college game in the comments, and it might help other people build their red flag list. But I have about 55 plays that I'm Johnny on the spot during my games, and it shows a great awareness on my part. And I share this with all my young crews that I work with, and it's become something we've embraced, and we've helped grow this list together as NBA referees. And I think if your association or your clique or whoever you talk basketball with were to get into this kind of dialogue, I won't go to your high school game and wonder why you didn't reset the clock here. Recently, I went to a high school game where they had it was a college game. The ball went through the net, the clock stopped. The offensive team inbounded the ball, but the officials said the defensive or the new defensive team who had just scored had called timeout. Well, that's great. They're allowed to call timeout, but the clock went from 6.0 to 3.6. And so the clock should have been reset to 6.0 because they're saying the timeout occurred prior to the throw-in, obviously, or actually prior to possession out of bounds. I think that's the wrong college anyway. So to me, that was a red flag that these 3 college referees missed. So, this is something that I think will help your awareness. It will help you be the person quicker with the information, and it will help you lead your crew, whether you're a U2 or a U1 or a referee or a crew chief in our case. It'll help you lead. And I've been living by this for 28 years. And it's really helped me in crisis situations to be, oh, wait a second, let's not move on. This is a suspension of play. We can't have subs in the NBA. I don't know your rules, and it'd be hard for me to make a red flag list for you, but I really think it'll help everyone be more aware. So tonight we want to go through clock referencing to start with awareness. I've seen so many games end poorly because we didn't do some simple things like know how to clock reference. So I just want to do something. This would be very elementary. This is almost like IBO 101 for shot clocks. Okay, so this might be a little below some of you, but I really think it's worthwhile talking about. So let's throw up the first play. This is just a basic play. If you can don't let the play run, just widen it first for me, Sean. Don't run the play. There you go. There you go. Now the Zoom, we've optimized the video. We've done the best we can. It's going to be jumpy. Sean, move that gray box. Thanks, buddy.
Does that work?
No, I don't know if I'm the only one seeing that gray box, but it's definitely, there it goes. It's out of here. Okay, so right here we have Luka Doncic shooting free throw with 8:29 left in the quarter. So there's no crisis situation. It's not like an end of game situation, but I want to know the game starts at 8:29. I want to make sure my shot clock's at 24, and we have a made free throw, I believe. Ready, set, go. Ball comes through, freeze, and so freeze. Okay, so as soon as the ball comes in bounds, we're going to check to make sure our shot clock went. And we might make sure if you're 30 in high school, girls or boys, it says 29. Not just that we started with 30, but that it started to run. Too many times we just go, oh, it's 30, and we move on. And we do our little chop, and we just assume that the person that's getting $32 tonight to do our shot clock, start the shot clock. So make sure your shot clock starts. Okay, so now every pass and every line, I like to look at my shot clock when I don't have defensive pressure. So notice here, we don't have defensive pressure, so I don't have to be cued in. We have a player who started his dribble, so he can't travel. So I'm going to glance up and make sure the shot clock started. As slot or center official on yours, I'm going to step 2 steps back. I'm going to look at both clocks, make sure they're running, and then I'm going to referee the back 2/3 of the pack. All right, so go ahead, Sean. You can game speed it. As the ball approaches midcourt, freeze it at midcourt. Thanks. And whenever it crosses midcourt or approaches midcourt, I'm going to use the midcourt line to see where we're at and how long our possession is going to last. A lot of times that'll help me in my body clock to know when we're going to have imminent action. Imminent action is like at 5 seconds, you know something has to happen in 5 seconds or less. 10 seconds, you know that the play is going to be starting to be committed to the rim, or they're going to get really deep into their action. And every pass, when the ball's in the air, if there's no defensive pressure, I'm glancing at the game clock, especially in quarter-ending situations, game-ending situations. We'll get to that in a little bit. So Mark it's our trail here. He's going to clock reference. And now you notice there's no competitive matchup for our lead. He should also have a awareness of the shot clock and game clock. Our center official really has nothing competitive going on right now. He should have awareness on every pass of our shot clock and our game clock. And if you're aware of the game clock and shot clock, possessions change with every second, with every 5 seconds. My self-talk changes with every 5 seconds. So when we get to 10, I'm going, nothing cheap margin, nothing cheap, nothing cheap. When we get to 5, I'm going, nothing marginal, nothing cheap. And then when we get down to, the nitty gritty, I'm going, rim, rim, rim. Okay. So those are my self-talks. And I don't want to get into it too much. You got somebody in the waiting room there, Sean. So here we go to pass to Zubas. Zubas, freeze. This is called split action. And I'm just going to go tangent off away from awareness right now and talk about how to talk to coaches. The more you know about basketball, the more you can talk to a coach in coach speak rather than referee speak, the more you're going to get along with coaches. When I started coaching my daughter's team, which I know a lot of you have had the joy of refereeing my daughter's games, when I learned how to talk like a coach and understand their lingo, I started getting along with the Greg Popoviches of the world. So the more stuff you can learn like this, like split action, DHO, ice, blue, all their defensive calls in your league, the more likely you are going to be to have good communication with coaches. So that's a little tangent, just a little nugget. All right, so we have a dribble handoff after this little split action. Go ahead. and the ball goes out, freeze, and there we have a pass, right? So as the ball went away from the trail, I want him to his eyes to glance to the shot clock and see we're at 10. Yeah, so this should let us know that we're gonna have some major action here in the next 10 seconds. Now you'll notice Eric Lewis is in the lead at the far lane line, has closed down his position. And anytime you're gonna rotate, before you rotate, you should check your shot clock at that lane line. You should glance up at the opposite end of the court and check your shot clock. Now here's a neat little trick. So notice he's there at 10. Okay, let him do his rotation. Ready, set, go. Freeze him at the other lane line when he gets there. Freeze. Okay, is it freeze? Now notice that the time it takes Eric Lewis and most referees in the NBA to go from one lane line to the other is about 3.5 seconds. So if you start your rotation, you look up, you see shot clocks at 10, and you see an offensive player in the lane posted up in front of the rim, and now he's waiting for an entry pass, and you rotate all the way through, and he's still there. You're pretty good. You're probably, don't have to go, oh, that's 3 seconds. That rotation should tell you that it probably was, he's been in there for 3 seconds. In our game, we do this with defense at 3 seconds when we have defenders opened up in front of the rim trying to cheat our system. So when Ed Rush was our boss, he came up with this, and we started noticing that a rotation from lane line to lane line usually takes about 3.5 seconds if you're doing just a basic, accelerated pace, I guess you would say. So the second thing is, once you clear that lane line, you're going to check your shot clock again. So if you don't have the 3 seconds, you're engaged. And now here we are at 6 seconds, and we know that action's imminent. So we all want to be, when you feel 6, your self-talk should be engage, get my weight to my front foot. Okay, so here we go. So we have a drive, ready, go. We're going to do a lot of freezes here, Sean. Okay, boom, tries to draw a foul, freeze. So on that pass right there, now all 3 referees, when the ball's in the air, especially the slot official, should look to see where the catch was. So when he sees 2.1 or 2.6 on that catch, there should be things going through your mind like, what can happen in 2.6? Can a guy take 4 dribbles? Can he take 3 dribbles? So here we go. We have a drive, and freeze it on the drop pass, drop on the catch, freeze. Okay, now here you notice freeze. There you notice that Zubac caught the ball, I want to say with I think we can illustrate, maybe he caught it with 0.6. Notice that the superimposed clock is different than the game clock above the baskets. So if you can see the catch and he caught it at 0.3 and it's down by his knees like this, you shouldn't have to wait for the horn. You should know that this is going to be a 24-second violation or a violation of 30 seconds in your game, whatever it is. And so back before replay, we used to define the shots that could occur in 1/10, 2/10, 3/10, 7/10, 9/10. And so we knew, you couldn't catch, turn, and dribble, or dribble and turn in 7/10, but you could do it in 9/10, because that's how we refereed it prior to replay. But it's helped me in these games, in just this kind of stuff, to recognize that this play right here, Zubac is not going to get this off. Now, if I was in this game and I was Mark Iotter or Eric Lewis and did not respond to this violation, now you'll notice Kane Fitzgerald at the trail, he does respond to it and he calls the violation. If I didn't respond to this, I would be wondering where my concentration is for the night, which is now it's time for me to have a self-talk with myself, like, hey, bud, where's your concentration? Because knowing the clocks, knowing the team fouls, knowing the personal fouls, knowing, if there's a timeout coming, all these things is all great ways to measure your awareness during the game. And if you're not doing that, you're probably not as aware as you think you are. All right. So you'll notice here we get this 24-second violation, and we go from there. One thing I would say about shot clock violations, after a team scores, if you realize, oh my God, that was late, and you're in a high school game, don't be afraid to open the window of opportunity and blow the whistle, call a shot clock violation. And I don't think you need to have crew conversation, but unless you really want to. I think that adds confusion to a situation. But don't be afraid to open the window of opportunity and come back and get that play late prior to the throw-in. I think that's, it's not that big a deal. And sometimes it just takes you just an extra second to go, wait a second, nah, that was late. Okay. Any comments or questions on this first play before we move on? Nope. Okay, let's go to the second play. This is a similar play at the end of the game. And this is back to the window of opportunity, let's say. So we bring the ball across and we know it crosses it. Crossing it. Yep. There you go. Let it run. Okay, we have a tie game. So that's obviously very important to our awareness. We're gonna freeze. Whenever I'm in a tie game like this, just an awareness thing for me, you notice how the slot or the center official is going past the midcourt line? And 17 is 7 seconds off the 24. So this was close to an 8-second violation. Not as close as you think, because we actually call it on 15 when we see 15. But I always, as a center official, show awareness of potential 8-second violations, or in your case, 10-second violations, by stationing myself at the midcourt line to assist with at the trail at these kind of junctures in the game, because there's really nothing competitive going on in my primary. So just a small nugget there. But anyway, so he brings it back. The guy brings it across. We look up, we see the possession, the difference between the game clock and the shot clock. Very big in awareness. Go ahead. Freeze it when the center gets too low, Sean. Keep going, keep going, keep going, keep going. Okay, for whatever reason, freeze. So for whatever reason, our center official has disengaged from a 4-man pick and roll on the strong side. And I hope I don't have to explain what that is. Some people will say, oh, you're talking over our heads, but hopefully y'all know what that is. So you'll notice the slot is way too low to assist. He should be at the upper tip of circle, not the lower tip of circle at this point, to help with that 4-man pick and roll, but also to help with any help side defender that would come to defend if he were to come off that pick and they didn't defend it up top correctly, or they didn't switch it. So again, coach speak. So I want Derek Richardson at the tip of circle, and I want him to wear the shot clock, and I want him to wear the 4-man pick and roll. The lead right now has nothing to do that. We have spacers in the corner, and he can be helping with that pick and roll at this juncture of the game. I wouldn't want him helping at 10:59 of the first, but at this juncture of the game, we can't be missing any plays. But we definitely want him to have an awareness that the shot clock's already at 9. All right, here we go. Yeah, the switch. I guess they didn't switch it. Freeze. All right, now we have an ISO. Okay. And so once you see the ISO, you know that with 2.1 on the shot, if you saw when he ISO'd and there was no defensive pressure, if you glance at the shot clock, especially as the lead, since you have nothing going on, you're going to know that there's no more action going to happen except an imminent shot or drive. So there's no pass at 2.1 and then hopefully a shot normally. Okay, so you'll notice the ISO here, our center official got engaged in the one-on-one matchup. Our trail, though, is now disengaged. And I'd like them to come on the floor just a smidge to referee the play, but also to help with anything that could happen, with the secondary defender on the other weak side. All right, so here we go. He rises up, freeze. Okay, all right. So you'll notice that you see the amber lights. So we have a horn go off, and our lead is refereeing strong side rebounding. But at this juncture of the game, I think you really want your first sequence, and we talk about sequence in the NBA quite a bit. Your first sequence in this sequence should be to referee whether that ball hit the rim. And same thing with Derek Richardson at the center right there. We want him to sequence rim, then go to his weak side rebound. So make sure you get into sequencing, and that'll improve your awareness to understand what the sequence of this play is. It's rim, rebound, not rebound. And so many people skip that. So what happens in this game is it hits the backboard, which makes it confusing. Go ahead. Should have been a shot clock violation. And they rebound the ball with whatever. So, but we know that the play started, I think, at 27.4. So the difference in the shot clock was 3.4. So in our game, we're very militant about our time. So we would have called a shot clock violation, reset the game clock to 3.4, which I think is showing great awareness at any level of basketball. You can discuss that with your supervisor. And then in our game, you can call it timeout and advance it, which is a huge deal. So what happens here is we have no awareness by our 3 referees. The Pelicans should have been able to get a timeout here, or had the violation called and get their offense set. But the game clock's going to run out in a tie game. So go ahead and run the tape. Now you see the game. I didn't ask Sean to do the +10 because he's a rookie on these NBA tapes. But if he did, you would see at the end of the video, the teams are complaining. The crew gets together and they just they're not sure about what's happened. And in our game, they really should have stopped the game for a rim hit and gone to replay. But again, after the discussion, if the teams are reacting like this and your gut says it didn't hit the rim, I think it's okay to open the window of opportunity, go back, call the shot clock violation, reset the game clock back to where it's supposed to be, and put the ball in play. Now, Sean and Bernard can coach you and mentor you, whether that's a good idea in college or high school. If you're becoming a G League referee or a NBA candidate, that's what we do. That's how we're trained. And I think it would really help you at all levels of basketball to have that kind of awareness. Any questions, comments on that play before we move on? No? All right. Third play. Okay. This is similar to the last game. Just if you can make it bigger, Sean. We have
Got it exposed. It's not bigger.
no, not yet. I think that's big enough. It's fine. No, that was the biggest it can be. Okay. All right, let's go. We'll just run it. Okay, so we have James Harden, 4-man pick and roll, the bigs helping, comes to the basket, freeze. And now here in this game, we have a shot clock difference of roughly 17.1, I guess. Here we go. And we have a miss there, we freeze. And now they retain freeze. And the Nets, this should have been a shot clock violation with the Spurs getting the ball and obviously calling timeout and advancing the ball and at least being able to tie the game. But for some reason here, our crew doesn't see that the ball didn't hit the rim, doesn't realize they're in a replay situation to go to rim hit, and the wrong team gets to retain the ball. And ultimately now the shot clock's off, and now the Spurs have to foul, and whoever they foul is going to make 2 free throws and basically put the game away. The reason I put this play in there is to kind of illustrate how important something as easy as a rim hit is at the end of one of your games. And the difference between game clock and shot clock, and understanding how impactful this possession is for the game rather than the fouls and the violations, how impactful this can be in determining the success of your crew every night. So I really, really think it's the people who can be aware at these junctures of the game and step onto the stage and go, whoa, 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 shot clock violation, even if it's right now, after you realize, wait a second, we missed it. Or stop the game and get together as a crew and say, wait a second, I didn't have that hit in the rim. Did you have it hit in the rim? Well, no, I didn't think it hit the rim. And now we have a nice conversation. All 3 of us get together and none of us think it hit the rim. 3 I think is 1 I know. So I think you're good going with the shot clock violation there. There's one more play in this series of shot clock plays, I believe. And it's just, I think we can skip it, Sean, because I think we've gone on a little bit with the shot clocks. Let's go into awareness about take fouls at the end of the game. So many of you are very good at knowing your team fouls and knowing we're in a situation of where a team has a foul to give. And there are a lot of situations where you want to be quick if they're taking a foul. But there's also situations where you better make sure they're taking a foul. So in this situation here, we see Denver is playing Dallas. It's 81-80 with 9.1 left. Let's go. Ready? Is this the play? No, I do want to do this play. Freeze. Okay, so here's a game. This is a summer league game. 81-80. We have three of our younger referees in our program on the floor, and let's just do our clock referencing here. All right, you ready? Here we go. So this is game clock referencing. This is really important for me, especially in high school, where you can really be the hero. Okay, freeze. Okay, so let's go back to the catch in front of the young lady at the center. So if John Conley, who's in the trail right now, clock references on that long pass while the ball's in the air and sees the catch is at 1.8, there should be a catalog of plays in your brain that tell you what this person can do in 1.8. Can he up fake, jab step, drive to the middle of the paint with 2 or 3 dribbles and get it off in time? Probably not. And whenever you're in doubt, Daryl Garrettson's main thing was when in doubt, white. So let's just see what happens. Now our trail is obviously a little bit late getting up the floor. I always, at camps and clinics, I always ask the question, who's responsible for last second shot? And we always have, trail or center or slot or whatever. And the answer is all 3 people should have an opinion. When I was a rookie up to my 5th year in the NBA, we did not have replay on last second shots. And I used to work with Hugh Evans and Ed Rush and all these 30-year veterans. And it was a great opportunity 4 quarters a game, 60 or 70 games a year for me to say, hey, every quarter I'm going to be Johnny on the spot with that last second shot. And there were 3 or 4 games early in my career where I came in and said, I had the shot late after we had just said that this team won, or I had the shot good after we said this team lost. And one in particular in Utah, Sacramento had thought they had lost. Utah had scored. Adam Keefe caught it by his shin with 0.2 of a second on the catch. And my partner scored it. And I went in, I said, no, it's late. And because of that call, instead of Sacramento being out of the playoffs, they were in the playoffs. So that's a major deal. And it just so happened I went to the playoffs for my first year that year too. So I'm glad I went in and said that. But these opportunities come more times than you think. So let's just take a look at this play. We had a catch at 1.8. Go ahead, up fake, dribble, freeze. So you'll notice the shot's late, and we have an emphatic score from the trail. After we have this kind of thing, I think I'd like to see our slot and our lead come in and have dialogue and make the ruling on the floor the proper one before we go to replay. We do have the crutch of replay, but in high school, you don't have that. So it's really important to zone in with your awareness on you have to referee the catch, no foul on that shot. Which play was that? I don't know which play you're talking about, Fitz. All right, let's move on to the next play. All right, here we go. Let it run. All right, so this is, I'm kind of beating a dead dog. I didn't realize I put this many plays in. Okay, freeze. So again, we have 5 seconds. There's a catch at 4.6. Go ahead. We have a kick out, freeze. The ball, look at freeze. So we had 2 passes. And if you see the sequencing by Simone in the slot, she never once looks up at the clock when he either pass. In fact, the pass is going to come back out to the person to her right, and she's going to sequence right to the defender who's closing out, which is really wrong in our game. Our sequence in this situation should be catch, feet, clock, defender. That's our sequence. Instead of she's going to go right to defender. So she's going to skip two parts of our sequence in our officiating anyway, and go right to the defender who's really not even competitive in this matchup. So watch. She has a double team in the corner. Ball is kicked back out to the wing. Freeze. See, her head went to the line, and then because of our skippity scop video, you can't see she went to the defender, but she never went to the shot clock. Had she known the shot was, the catch was at 1.1 or whatever it was, that shot that person shot, if she has a good catalog, she'll know that's a good shot. She ends up wiping this out for let's see, she get the catch, I think is at exactly 1 second, something like that. Freeze. And it should have been a good goal, but they wiped it out. Again, just sequencing and making late decisions is going to make a successful referee. Let's go to the next play real quick. Pelicans game. All right, we'll revisit that when we get back.
Which one do you want?
No, move on to the next
another
play.
Denver game. How about this one?
No, I think we did. Yeah, this is another play about awareness. So we'll just zoom that one in, bud.
All right, sorry.
Okay, so what we have here is a difference in shot clock. We have a 14.9 and 9 seconds on the shot clock. So we have 5.9. We're in double overtime. Denver's up 3 with the ball. Okay. So really at this point in the game, Memphis doesn't want to foul. They can get the ball back if they stop them with 5.9, call timeout in advance. And then even in the college game, you can get a ball at the rim, and Tyus Edney showed us years ago, you can go rim to rim with 5 dribbles and score. So the defensive team, you really have to know your situation here. There's a 5.9 second, at least a 5.9 second difference between the shot clock and game clock. So when you're thinking, oh, they have a foul to give, understand when you call a foul to give, the impact of that whistle. First of all, are they trying to take a foul? That should be huge in your awareness. And B, is it a foul? That should be second. And then 3, understand that when you call a foul to give, if it's not right and they turn the shot clock off, you've virtually ended the game. So here our lead official is under the assumption they're taking a foul and that they have a foul to give. So he's thinking I'll be quick with that to save time. But in essence, he turns the shot clock off and ultimately ends the game because now it is take foul time but no shot clock, as we all know. So here we go. You'll see our lead is going to come up high on this. Okay, so we referee this play with speed, rhythm, balance, and quickness, and this is a play that I'd like to see a lot more foul on, given the game scenario and awareness of time, score, difference in shot clock and game clock, whether they have a foul to give, all those different variables that help make these plays, easier to referee. One thing I would say is the more variables you can be aware of in a basketball game, shot clock, who has fouls. And I actually have a whole list that I'm going to put in the chat here, just so I don't have to go through them all. I'll type, copy and paste them. There we go. All right. Here's all the things I try and be aware of at all times. Okay, and we'll discuss these in a second, but that play there is a really good illustration. Here's game 4 of the NBA Finals. It's 105, 99, 17.2. Whenever we have teams score at the end of games and the shot clock's turned off, we can't assume that teams are just automatically going to foul. There's reasons why they may want to foul, but there's other reasons why they may not. They may not want to foul because it's Steve Nash. He's a 96% free throw shooter. They may not want to foul because they want to get one trap. In fact, we always talk about one trap. If they escape the trap and they're trying to foul, marginal contact can become a foul. That's very important. So you can't anticipate fouls. One thing I kind of should have led with is successful referees at every level make late decisions. They don't react, they process. And that's really important to know the distinction between the two. If you're calling block charge because you go, huh, and you're actually just reacting to force, to contact, and you're not processing the end result of the play, you're going to have a lot of ICs. You just really need to slow down and have late whistles. All right, so here we go. We got a score by Phoenix. Go. Freeze. Okay, freeze. And now we have an inbounds pass to Chris Middleton. At this juncture of the thrower in was Giannis. So his man is going to go double the ball because if, as you remember, prior to game 6, Giannis was having trouble with his free throws. So the reason they double is to get the ball out of a good free throw shooter's hands and into that free throw shooter's hands, and then they'll take their foul. But if we don't allow them to have that first trap, they can't do that. So having this kind of awareness during these kind of critical situations is so important. And that's, again, deciding rather than reacting, and processing rather than reacting, and making late decisions. So here we have an entry pass to Middleton, freeze. And now it's a perfect trap. It's a perfect trap. When I have a perfect trap, notice we have a good center official on top of it. The lead's trying to attack from the backside. And really, he should be watching number 3. And Cape Town at the center should be watching number 23. Well, we end up getting a call from our new trail official who's on the baseline on number 23. Again, bad sequencing by our crew here. But the biggest thing is when you see a solid trap like this, you want to let the foul call itself at this point in the game. And so we didn't. We had a little bit of a quick whistle here, and go ahead and run the play. And now you see, like, both players like, wait a second, we didn't want to foul. And the clip, there's right here, you'll see number 3 go, or Chris go, wait, we had a good trap. Hey, we trapped. And so it's really important to understand that when you do that, you're really you've ended the game. You've ended the game. A few years ago, my daughter's team was in the Sweet 16 in the NCAA tournament, and we had a very young crew, and we had this exact situation occur where we had a foul to give. They thought we were trying to foul, and the shot clock difference was like, we had played defense for 29 seconds with a 30-second shot clock, and they called a hand check in a double team because they thought, oh, well, they have a foul to give. Well, they turned the shot clock off on us. Thankfully, we got the ball back, but we missed 2 free throws to get ourselves knocked out. But those are the kind of things that you have to be aware of, especially during critical points. Yeah, good, Martin. All right, so we'll go Marty Spencer. Good. What do we got here?
Last second shot, or before the half.
Okay, let's go.
Pay attention to the time on the clock.
All right.
I'm gonna roll it.
Okay. So, and again, awareness, okay, yeah, let's run this playback and then go ahead and make it bigger. So awareness goes to all different levels. So we've talked about making sure you know if they're trapping, if it's a take foul time situation, slowing down your processing. But at the whole game, you have to be aware of the situation. So I guess the question here is, if you're on this call right now and you think a foul is a foul, I want to just tell you, you're probably not going to go to a very high level of officiating. That's just the facts. So do we really need to go 94 feet and shoot this free throw with this amount of time left in the game? So ready, go. So with 1/10, we're going to go 94 feet on a play that I wouldn't deem rough. If it's rough play, yes, you must call the rough play. If it's an advantage, disadvantage, possession consequence type of play, I think we just pass on this. Everyone goes to their benches and we walk on down the road. Okay. There's 100 out of 100%, 86% of the plays that happen in any basketball game, whether it be NBA or CYO, we can all agree on. 86%. Everybody on this call would say, yep, that's a foul, that's a foul, that's a foul, that's a foul. It's the 14% that defines our game and how we manage our game with those gray plays that are truly gray. The ones that we're all going to argue whether it's a block or a chart, whether it's a marginal contact at the rim on an and one or not. And how we, I guess, apply fairness and equity to those 14 plays are going to be whether the teams wave at us and walk off or chase us off. And so this play right here to me is in that 14. And if we apply some common sense here, I think both teams go to their quarter breaks and everybody just doesn't even think twice about whatever. So have an awareness of where your shot clock is, where your game clock is, and the impact of your whistle, because the impact here was we're going 94 feet to shoot free throws with 0.1 left in a game. Okay. What else we got?
That's it, boss.
All right. I thought actually this was gonna be like one of my practices where we have, I write down all these plays and I used to do my practice plan. I was like, I'm gonna get through all this tonight, and we'd get through half and that would be that. But I wanted to talk about that list over there in the chat room, about some of the things that you really need to be aware about during your game. So first 6 minutes of every game, my biggest rule, I got this from Daryl Garrettson and Ronnie Garrettson, is love your first call. And so I have like a little report card. One of my, I guess, people I mentor, who's an NBA referee, she is every game this year going to have to send me a thing after the game, and it has check marks. And one of them, the first thing is, did I love my first call? And my first call, when I say, did I love my first call, is I don't want to have to run it back 16 times. I don't want to have to go back and say, no, wait, right there. Okay. I want my first call to be, everybody goes, man, this guy's good. You see that first call? That was right. That was definitely a foul. Unless it's something that's rough and, I'm the only one who saw someone get elbowed in the head or something like that. I want to love the first call. I think we come out of the locker room too often and we don't remind ourselves to do that. And we just want to have a first call. And we end up having a first call that now has set a bad tone for the night, not just for you, but for the crew. Okay. And then we have different parts of the game. After about 6 minutes, most teams' rotations are 6 minutes, 4 minutes, 6 minutes, 4 minutes, whatever it is. Depends on what league you're in. And so the impact of the subs, understanding what the subs are going to try and do to your game, understanding their tendencies, understanding how to manage them as they come into game. So when you see subs come in that are notorious in your league or in your area, it's okay to have a signal that says, let's tighten up our whistles. Or, I go like this with a couple of players. So I go, okay, everybody knows, right? And that's our signal that, hey, we're not going to let this guy change our game. That's what this guy's coming in to do. So obviously we've talked about clocks and shot clocks. Team fouls, it's so important to know the impact of your whistle, whether you have a foul to give, whether you're going to the penalty, whether you're going to the double bonus in y'all's case. And then the next one's player fouls. One thing that's helped me with my coaches ratings is, again, the coach speak and understanding that when someone gets their second foul in the first 4 minutes of your game, you should go back to your videotape and find out, are those two good fouls? You just put a starter on the bench with 2 fouls. Are they warranted? Now, I'm not saying you go out there and go, I didn't want to call that because it was going to be a second, because we get a lot of cop-out stuff like that, and that's no good. If it's a foul, put his butt on the bench. There's 2 sides to that nickel, and that is a star player should go to the bench when he gets 2 fouls because there's an advantage for the other team. So don't be a cop-out person and say, oh, I didn't want to call that. It's going to be a second foul. That's terrible. But the thing that helped me with my coach rating was where coaches were like, wow, this guy really is aware what's going on here is let's say so-and-so star player or so-and-so starter gets a second foul at the 7-minute mark of the first period in your high school game. Before you put the ball back in play, do yourself a favor. Look over at the coach and make sure he's aware that his best player or one of his starters has a 2 fouls, and see if he wants to sub. In our league, I'll go so far as if I don't see that recognition, I'll yell, Tom, are you subbing or not? And then you'd be amazed 9 times out of 10. Oh my God, Scott, you're right. My bad. And now here comes the sub. And now all of a sudden I've built some positive face time with that coach. So then when I have to tell him that enough is enough, he's going to give me a little more respect than had I not done that. So sequences, that's just knowing what's been called at both ends. I have a lot of self-talk during games where, we have a good block at one end. And as soon as I leave the trail to go lead, I'm like, next one, this, that, and here has to be good. Slow your whistle down, that sort of thing. Time, score, and impact. There's so many times where I hear referees. I watched a game at York. They played CNU as a men's game a couple years ago. And the referees referee the time and the score so badly that it was a 4 overtime game or a 3 overtime game. And I would love to break that tape with that crew down, because you could see they were refereeing time and score, and they were taking black and white plays and trying to make them gray. You cannot do that. You cannot take a play that's clearly a charge and say, well, we just called a block down there, so I guess we'll call this a block. You can't do that. Okay. You have to call charges, blocks. Now, if you have the play that we're all going to debate whether that's a block or a charge, that's the time to manage your game and understand. But knowing your time, your score, and the impact your whistle is really huge. Now, here's some stuff that's kind of weird, partnering awareness. So when I'm out there with young officials, I try not to blow in front of young officials unless I have to, because I know it causes stress, and I want our crew to work well. I don't want to throw us out of kilter. When we have a double whistle, I'm a giver. I'm trying to give double whistles up to my younger partners. And then if I know a partner has just made a tough call against team A, and now he has a call that's going to go in favor of team A, I'm giving that call up, even if it's in my lap, because I want that coach to see that the guy that just gave him a technical foul or just screwed his team in some way, shape, or form, he's being fair, and he's the referee who's giving that call. So help your partners and understand their psyche as you go through the games. So if you have 7, 8 whistles in a row, and you have a double whistle to your partner, for God's sakes, don't take it to the table. Okay, release it, and if you have to be verbal with it, go for it. We talked about the first 6 minutes. I think I was making this while I was drinking. One thing that really irritates me as a coach, and I see this with Greg Popovich, I see this with a lot of our coaches, is when officials don't understand the game, when a timeout is coming, when a mandatory is coming. I can remember a play a couple years ago. This is when George Karl was with Denver, and I think they were playing San Antonio, and San Antonio goes on an 8-0 run. And as Duncan's landed in, I go, beep, timeout Denver. And because I saw George kind of flinch on the bench, but it was time, every NBA coach in the world would call on him a timeout then. And he jumped off the bench. He goes, what do you got? And I said, timeout Denver. He goes, who called timeout? I said, do you want a timeout or not? He goes, well, yeah, but who called timeout? I said, you did. And he goes, why did you do that? I said, you want a timeout or not? And so I was having a little fun with George. I did that with Terry Stotts a couple of years ago, and he just, instead of getting angry about it, he started laughing, and he kind of looked at me like, yep, you're right, I need a timeout. But I knew he was taking a timeout, and I'm not telling you to do that. All I'm saying is that's the kind of awareness you want to have, where the ball goes through and you're making eye contact with the coach because he should be taking a timeout. If he doesn't, okay, go back to refereeing. But have that awareness. Or if a player falls down on the ground with the ball with 16 seconds left, and he has no way of getting out, his coach might want to get him out of the timeout. Have awareness for the timeout. If there's a double team at the end of the game, if you don't have ball pressure in front of yourself and your partners are all over the ball, that's a time to look down at the benches and see, do they want a timeout? Let's not have a coach saying, but I was trying to call a timeout. These are small things to show awareness, and this awareness comes out glowing to the coaches and your managers, your signers, and all these awareness things are the opportunities to really kind of elevate your career. So many people think it's making the call from 60 feet away to save the game. I think I've done that twice in 28 years in the NBA. So, but all these things I do every night, and a lot of our successful referees in the NBA do. We talked about the impact of subs. We talked about runs by the team. About partner psyche. And then I did a lot of redundancy. I was actually compiling this with Tyler Ford over a text, and I was just putting it in my text as he said it, and I just pasted it up there. Anybody want to add to that list? No. So this is just.
So Scott, let's talk there. You've gone on for quite a bit. You've shared a lot, and I greatly appreciate it. You know, the information and impact of what you shared on the video with the red flags and with the list that you've just gone on is insurmountable in what officials need to use as resources to be able to attack the game at the various levels that they have and that they're encountering this year. There's a lot of homework that needs to be done out of this call by all of you. But what you can do with the time that we have left, we have 10 minutes on the clock. We could go in a little bit of overtime, but we have 10 minutes on the clock. What I'd love to do is I'd love for all of you to come on your camera and show up, because this unique opportunity you have to sit in front of a NBA Finals official to be able to talk through, ask questions, and apply the things that are important to you. I think it is incumbent upon you to come on camera to be able to say, hey man, thank you. I appreciate this. You know, 20 years ago, we didn't have this. Scott's talking about the opportunity to share, an opportunity to use video to get better and things of that nature. We didn't have this type of platform years ago, and you have that platform now. I would challenge you to take advantage of this opportunity you have in your preparation for the upcoming season to be able to engage. We've asked you to do that in the chat. Anybody ready has a question, we invite you to come off of mute and let's go ahead and talk a little bit.
Yeah. Hi, Scott. This is Will Freed. So like I saw you reference rhythm, speed, balance, and quickness. What advice would you be would you give me because there's like some plays with a one-on-one matchup where you can see a player is able, with like a ball handler, is able to play through the contact and not get and not call a foul, especially like if there's a flow in the game. Like in your as an official, do you look more towards to see how much contact that they can play with using rhythm, speed, balance, and quickness?
Well, you know, so the first thing is that there's guidelines, and then there's where we have black and white things where it's like, hey, two hands, that's a foul. And then we have our speed, rhythm, balance, and quickness guideline that you can apply. So now you're determining the level of contact that a offensive player can get through that will take him off his route, or if it impeded him and got his speed to slow and he wasn't able to complete the play. So I think that the biggest thing is that that's different at every level. You know, if you're working fifth grade girls on a Sunday, that's different kind of contact than you're going to have in your high school game on Tuesday night. And it might be different in the college game you might work on Thursday. So understanding the level of contact in the game you are at is the first thing you have to identify. And then what you've called so far in the game is important as well. But the biggest thing I'll leave you with speed, rhythm, balance, and quickness is that if you can just process and not react to contact and see what the outcome of the play is before you blow your whistle, you're going to have a lot of success.
Thank you.
Thanks, Will. Appreciate that question.
Got one from Jess Thompson.
Yes.
Jess Thompson, former NBA referee. Jess Thompson. Jess, want to go?
Jess, you're up. Come off of mute. We're happy to hear your question.
God, how you doing?
Hey, partner, how you doing?
Pretty good. Listen, just one question. I'm over here in Korea right now, and Have you worked any international basketball and basketball rules?
I have not.
And if
So-
you have oh, okay. All
No,
right,
when
then
I
I
was
don't have a question.
35, when I was 35 years old, the NBA approached me. It was 20 something years ago, or 19 years ago. They approached me about possibly doing FIBA and going to Colorado Springs and doing all the tests that the FIBA officials that get to do the Olympics. And after talking with guys like Sean Corbin and Bill Spooner and David Jones, who had worked in the Olympics or in the international games, and having 3 young kids at that time, they kind of told me it was probably not the thing to do because I was, there was a lot
Okay,
of
okay.
Yeah.
Thanks a lot. Be well. Be
All right,
well.
thank
Thanks
you.
a lot, Scott. Good talking
Yep.
to you.
You too, bud.
How about the question from Kenya Kirkland?
Good evening. Thank you so much for being with us today. I had one question in reference to your sequencing. So the first sequence you said was rim and then rebound. And then the second sequence you said was feet, clock, and then defender. I guess the question is, how do a younger official who hasn't had a lot of time practicing that get comfortable doing so? Because in listening to you, I immediately thought like, I would miss a foul, I would miss a travel, I might miss a hold on a rebound. What advice do you have for someone to kind of get comfortable doing that if you haven't had to sequence in that way?
Well, I think first of all is you need to define sequences. So let's do a little something simpler. Like for instance, a sequence on just a pass to the wing. A lot of times in the NBA, the reason we missed travels for so many years was because we would go straight to the defender. And so now our sequencing is feet. We find the feet of the ball handler, and then we wait for him to dribble, and then we find our defender. And then in screen and rolls, we go defender, screener, ball handler, so that we don't have a push play, or, I can go on for hours about different sequencing. So basically it's just studying the game and understanding where your eyes should go from here to here to here, rather than, skipping different processes or parts of that.
Okay.
I could talk on it all night long, but it's just something that you'll gain with experience, I think.
Okay, yeah, because it sounds like you just have to trust the system, because otherwise I'm thinking I might miss it, but I might miss it if I don't do the sequence correctly. So that's helpful. Thank you.
Wally Rooney used to say, God rest his soul, he's an NBA and ABA referee. He used to always tell me when I became a pro referee, he's like, don't miss goaltending because everybody in the world's watching the ball. So my sequencing when the ball goes up is goaltending, rim, rebound. So, and when we talk about sequencing, we're talking about quick eyes. You gotta have quick eyes in this game. I only had an hour tonight. I picked awareness because I think it's something that everyone can benefit from, and it can help your game go to another level. I could have picked block charge, and I could have showed you how to sequence to defenders quickly. For instance, we see our mistakes whenever we watch tape. When we make mistakes, we go back and we look: did we start in the proper spot? Was our head position correct? How late were our eyes to the play? And 9 times out of 10, when we miss block charge, because we were on a primary defender, we should have been on a secondary defender, or we were on a secondary defender and it was the wrong secondary defender. And so those are the kind of sequencings I think you should start with, is understanding when you should be on secondary defender as opposed to primary defender.
Thanks, Kenya. Appreciate that. Dijon Moten,
Juan.
Juan. Oh, I'm sorry. Juan, you want to come off?
You want to move on to Lewis?
Sure. Lewis, do you have a question for us?
Yes, thank you guys. I appreciate you taking my question in the call. Truly an honor getting to speak to you guys. Just my question was on the block charge situations. I'm just approaching my second year in college basketball, and some of the issues that I've been having on the court are as the C or the slot official accepting a matchup and following that play directly to the rim. Sometimes with the lead on the strong or weak side more. I'm trying to figure out more who is taking the initiative to ref that play all the way to the rim.
Okay, so I'm going to give you the NBA way, and then you guys can apply that if you'd like. And then Sean's going to tell you how they do it in college game. So in our game, the person who's responsible for the primary defender referees the primary defender all the way to the rim. So if you're in the center position, slot in our case, and you've accepted that defender, and that primary defender defends the ball all the way, and that's the person who commits the block charge, that'll be your whistle, your primary cadence whistle, and you'll be the person to take that to the table. 9 times out of 10, primary defenders do not commit block charge, and 9 times out of 10, it's a block because they're late. 9 times out of 10, the secondary defender will rotate from the weak side. The lead has his eyes on that defender the longest. Therefore, we want him to take that play. So as the slot or the center official, I'm going to have a secondary cadence. And if you don't know what a secondary cadence is, it's so primary is this, secondary is action, reaction. Okay. Old Ed Rush thing. So the lead in those plays with the secondary defender should take responsibility of that play. Now, when there's a train wreck and we have what I call a whistle play, and we have to have a whistle, it's okay to blow your whistle to stop the game, check off on that lead. And if they didn't have a whistle, make a decision. But make sure you go through your whole sequence or your process so you don't have a blarge. So primary defender is yours. Try not to commit without eye contact with the lead. Secondary defender's lead. Try not to have a primary whistle in that play. But if you do not commit, and just slow down so we don't have double signals. Now, it's interesting you brought that up because if we had more plays, the very first plays I was going to show you were block charge, where we had 2 officials giving the signals on the plays. One was a blarge and the other one was both sending, offensive foul. So maybe next.
I've always tried to have a delay with the cadence of my whistle just to avoid that situation. So that's kind of why.
Anytime you have block charge, you want to have a late decision on that play. And what I mean by late, during the playoffs, I always say to people when we're doing our pregame, and I'll get to that in a second. When we're doing pregame, I always say, guys, on the ball decisions must be late. So we don't have a clean strip. So we don't have a blarge. So we don't have a block that should be a charge. So we don't have a charge that should be a block. So all decisions in the playoffs really want to slow down and make late decisions. Decisions off the ball are okay to speed your whistle up and engage, because a lot of times in playoff games, for me anyway, if I go, I want to set the tone with off-ball plays, and I'm going to call illegal screens. I'm going to call chucks. I'm going to call dislodges in the post, grabs and, freedom of movement plays. So just a little nugget there.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
Don, how about you guys with with that same play, slot side drive, primary defender, or secondary defender rotation?
No, you hit it on the nail. We're consistent with that one-on-one primary all the way to the hoop. We want that slot to take advantage of that and take it all the way in. If a secondary defender pops in, the lead is supposed to take responsibility for that. Outside trail helps with the feet.
That's a great point, Son. I forgot to bring up that our trail will help out the restricted area. That's good.
Yeah, and we have to pay attention to time, time of the game and everything. There are situations we can come in the last 2 minutes and help out with that.
Yeah. Conrad, you're 100% listening in the chat here. You're 100% right. You got to know your matchups. For me, I don't even put that in because I do a thing every day before games called hoopshype.com, and I'll go through and I'll look and see, are the players battling on Twitter? Is this guy's girlfriend used to be his guy's girlfriend? That kind of thing. And you can see the issues between the teams, and then you can go into the game knowing, okay, well, let's make sure we have an awareness of that. And then obviously, we know going into every game in the NBA what the rivals are. When I was working high school ball, 30 something years ago, I knew DeMatha and St. John's or Springbrook and Blair and all those kind of teams, what the rivalries are in the DC area, and as you should. In today's society, you should be able to gather as much information on almost every game you work from the high school level up and know, if you have a problem matchup. I can remember a game in my 4th or 5th year in DC. I had no idea what I was getting myself into. I went to Lincoln Middle School because Cardoza and Dunbar didn't want to play at either of their houses. And I walked in and my partner didn't show up, and I did the 2 best teams in DC by myself in a packed gym. And I had no idea that both of them were undefeated until about the second quarter. So it was an unbelievable game. We had to stop the game about 18 times to get the police to get everybody off the floor from.
You're there by yourself.
Yeah. My man.
Mr. Mula, I think you have a question. Why don't you come off of mute?
Yes. Hey, Scott. Question for you. It's not really about awareness, but it's about rules. What kind of advice would you give to someone kind of, working their way up to become a big rules guy?
Yeah, so I'm a big rules guy. So my first mentor is Al Batista. I know most of you know who that is. He can recite 6 different rule books, including the NBA one now. And so I was driving home from one of my first college games with Al, with Shelton Fisher, who back then was an ACC referee. And we were on 81 somewhere between Bridgewater and Eastern Mennonite. And he said, if one of you missed this next question, I swear to God, you're going to ride home by yourself. You're going to walk home from here. And both Shelton and I missed the question. And he pulled over, and I really thought he was going to make us walk home, which was about 138 miles. And but it really brought home for me how I thought I knew the rules, but I didn't. And I think a lot of referees fall in that category. I know even in the NBA, that's the case, where I give a lot of tests and I ask questions, and you go, wow, you think you know the rules. And we just did our test the other day. And, if I get one wrong on that test, which I've only done twice in 28 years, I want to kill myself. And it was funny because one of my friends got one wrong and he wanted to kill himself. So it's really important to study the rules. The way I do it is I take and find, I first have a great group. My rules group is Tyler Ford, Josh Tiven, myself, Ben Taylor, Matt Boland. And then we have, and then I have Kane Fitzgerald. I have different pods, and there's different levels of trust with each pod. And so, but you'll notice that all my guys are young guys, because when I was a young guy, Joe Crawford would use me as somebody he could rely on, because as you get older, there's been so many rules changes through the year. Clear Path, for instance, in the NBA has changed 7 times in my 28 years. So my pods of people, I'll pose questions if I have, a question about a rule, or if I'm having some sort of doubt. And it'll be interesting to see the difference in the different pods of people. So it's important to have a group of people you can bounce stuff off of, because you'll find out, oh, wait a second, they don't agree with me on how that should be adjudicated. So that's the first thing. Second thing is it's a daily grind. Like Al Batista just started sending me, I didn't know he was doing this with another program. He started sending me 5 questions a day. I don't get graded on it. But I read it every day, and they're easy, but it doesn't matter. That keeps my brain going. And then I do get graded once a week by the NBA with a 10-question test that they give us every week online. So that obviously helps me. So it's an everyday thing. We just took our test, and I guarantee you we have a few officials on our staff that won't pick their rule book up again until they're sitting in the locker room wondering if they just screwed up a rule. And that's not going to happen. I always take tests, and I don't do true false. I get the answer, and then I go to the rule book and I find the rule citation, and I put it underneath. And that's what I do every year. That's another thing I do. But basically, it's just a constant asking of questions, It's amazing. The young referees can come up with some shit. Evan Scott came up with some stuff last week that I was like, buddy, that's never going to happen, but let's find out. So.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for that question. How about Mr. Moten? We lost you in a little technical difficulty, but I see you joined us again. You had a question?
Can you hear me now?
We can. Proceed.
So let me go ahead and say this is truly an honor. But so I'm actually not Mutan. My name is Samuel Phillips. I want to make that on record. I had to use my friend's link because my link wasn't working. And then when you called his name, I was like, wait a minute, my hand's raised. Then I realized I forgot I was using his link. So I apologize for that. We got it cleared up.
I thought it was your alias you were trying to use, and you were, undercover or something like that. I know how it is. I know the game, but
Right.
I guess you cleared it up for us.
I did clear it up. So yeah, no problem. Yeah, Sam is a lot easier to pronounce and remember. So you guys remember that name. First and foremost, Scott, really appreciate you being here tonight. This is really an honor. I was actually working a pro-am game last night with an NBA referee, just talking about different things, talking about different situations. But one thing that I've noticed as I'm growing and I'm getting better is it's really a lot of, you talk about pregame, right? And you talk about that preparation, but it's like you really have to understand that it's the morning you wake up, or really the night before. Sometimes it may be days before. So I guess my question to you, Scott, would be, what is maybe something that you've used over your 28 years to really get yourself prepared for games? And then, or maybe if it's maybe not mental, but what is something physical that you always do to help yourself be prepared and ready for games?
Yeah, it's a good question. Biggest thing, I'm really big on routines. So like you said, the night before a game, I'm not quite that far out, but the day of a game, I wake up and I do pretty much the same thing, every single day. I get up, I look at the hoopshype.com, I make my notes, I go through box scores of their last 2 games of the teams I have, and see, how many fouls they had. So for instance, if I have San Antonio playing Charlotte, I might know that both teams might only foul 11 times tonight, which is about half as many fouls in a normal NBA game. But if Utah is playing Denver, and when they play each other, it's around 58 fouls a game. So I know going in, hey man, if like I'll tell a young referee, hey, tonight you're not gonna have a lot of whistles, so don't stress over there because you only have 6 whistles all night, right? Or I might tell them, hey, you better be ready to go tonight because these guys get after it. So I get all my stats and I put that together. And then as the day goes on, we have our 11 o'clock meeting, which again is part of my routine. I have a great company I work for who gives me all these ways to get plays. So you have to find ways to get plays to discuss plays instead of you being a leader in the locker room and just going and spewing your diarrhea. Show plays and have discussion rather than. And I'm going to knock Al a little bit. Back in the day when Al would have his pregame, it'd be about an hour and 15 minutes, and he was the only one who spoke. Now, since then, he's obviously grown as a leader, and it's now more of a process of all 3 people speaking in the locker room. But like Mike Million, I don't know how many of y'all know him. I mean, he has a million plays that he sends out to people. Using those plays for your pre-games and discussion is a great way. I use all the plays, from the teams I'll have that night. So that's part of my routine. When we get to the locker room, I have a routine I do there. When I get on the floor, I do, I do stuff at 10:48, 7:48, 5:48, because my number's 48. And if I miss any of those 48s, I start to question where my head is that night. So I have all these checkpoints before I throw the ball up. When I was early crew chief, in the league, which was about 21 years ago, before I would throw the ball up, I would be like Kevin Costner. I would be like, turn the mechanism on. But instead of doing that, I would bounce the ball 3 times and I'd look up and go, watch this, bitch. And then I would just throw the ball. That was my way of like, let's go. Duke Callahan would always pat his partners on the back butt and say, right out of the gate, pal, every game. He did that every single game. And so as I matured, I got away from the watch this bitch and I started doing some different stuff to mellow out because that's what you do when you get old. And but the routines are really important to go through. And then your post-game routine is going to lead into the next game by you reviewing plays, discussing plays, being objective, being a good leader in the locker room, all those sorts of things. So it's an excellent question. If you don't have routines, you're going to have a bumpy career. If you have routines, you'll have a consistent career. How you prepare consistently every single day is how it's going to define your success. The one thing I love about Joe Crawford through the years is, and I saw a lot of older referees not do this, and I'm hoping I'm not one of them. And that is, we'd get a new mantra like, hey, we're going to call this year. And some old timers would go, I ain't calling that. Well, Joe Crawford adapted to everything he was asked to through the years. He might not have agreed with what we were doing, but he adapted to it. And he prepared for the game on October 9th, which happens to be my first game this year. I always use that date. I don't know why. October 9th, he prepared for October 9th as the same as he was going to prepare for the game 7 in June. And now I'm at that point in my career. And it's amazing how often you see referees at every level who don't consistently prepare. And then the playoffs, the tournaments, or the big games come, and you can see it comes out. They're exposed every single time because they didn't do what they're supposed to do every single night.
So Scott,
Hey,
we
yeah.
have 2 more
Appreciate that.
questions that we're going to go through the night, and then we're going to call it a night.
Okay.
So I'm going to invite Jim Meal, Coach Jim Meal, to ask his question, and then we'll get to Kevin, and then we'll do our closing comments.
Okay.
Scott, when you do your pregame with your crew, obviously I would think there's technique pieces, coach pieces, player pieces, matchups, et cetera. Is any one more important than the other? Is there a sequence that you go through that so that, you touch the various aspects that you think you need to? I mean, I think sometimes people might dwell too much on coaches or too much on players or too much on plays, et cetera. Just wondered what your thoughts were.
Yeah, you're 100% true. So my pregame is about getting my crew what I call between the 40s. So we have referees who don't call technical fouls, and we have referees who do call technical fouls. We have referees who call certain plays this way, some who call certain plays that way. And so they're on the goal lines of, say, a football field. And what I want to do is bring our crew to the 40s and have some sort of consistency so all 3 of us are on the same page. So for me, getting us all in the same mindset of how this game should be called, working as a team, the mechanics manual, the system we run, that's the most important thing right out of the gate. every single day I work, when we talk about plays, I think block charge and continuation plays are the two plays that define our game so many times, where, by inconsistency. So we have shots down here, we didn't have shots down here. We had a block down here, we didn't have a charge down here. Those are the plays, to me, at our game, that really screw games up. Now, I don't know what they are in the college game. I have an idea, or high school game, but it's really about getting the crew to work the mechanics and the system, so we work cohesive and we make each other feel good, look good, and we walk off the floor with both coaches waving to us saying, good job, feel like I got a fair shake. But honestly, the only time I talk about coaches is if I'm with a younger crew and I feel like maybe my experience can, like, for instance, we have a coach that, I always say, the less said, the better. And there's a lot of coaches, and I'll say this, I'll give you a quick Larry Brown story. For my first 15 years in the league, me and Larry Brown would butt heads, boom, boom, boom. And then one night I realized that he'd been a player, coach, GM for 40 years in the NBA. And I'd been in the NBA for 15. And he might not be a referee, but he could look down the court and see, I don't know what that is, but that's something. And so he jumped off the bench. He was yelling at me. And I said, Larry, you've been here for 40 years. I got to respect that. And if you say that's a foul, I'm with it. And all of a sudden, for the rest of my career, he would always, instead of, hey, Scott, it was, Scott, you're too good. That's how he'd start every sentence with me. And so it changed our relationship, having empathy for coaches, having, again, coaching, talking their language rather than our language. But as far as my pregame goes, I don't really talk about the coaches too often unless we're going into a situation that's, on hoopshype.com.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jim. And Kevin, you have the last question of the evening.
Thank you, Sean. And again, thank you, Scott, for being here this evening. You somewhat alluded to this in your last response, but over the course of your career, how have you strove to build relationships with your co-officials and maintain healthy communication throughout the game, even when differences do arise?
You mean with my partners?
Yeah, co-officials, correct.
Well, I mean, I'm going to start with one thing, is just the respect factor. So when I was a young referee, my mentor and I would work, and he was the referee and I was the umpire. And then my life and our careers went down the road by 5 years, and I was the crew chief and he was the referee. And so I would always empower the crew, basically, to like, I wanted them to lead, and I would, I wanted them to feel as comfortable as possible, because if everyone felt comfortable, we'd all look good. And so I would always make him throw the jump ball. No, you do the jump ball. Just small things to make him understand that I still respected him. That he was still my mentor, even though I was the crew chief. So that was the first thing I had to deal with when it came to maybe some friction down the road. But the biggest thing is, as far as communication goes, is just respecting everybody on the floor and in the game, and understanding who should take whistles and when you shouldn't take whistles, and continuing to keep the flow of the crew. Just kind of understanding that, you've been there, you've made all the same mistakes they're making that night, and have a lot of empathy for the tough job we all have. I really don't know how to answer that question. I've never been asked about that partners. I've asked that coaches about a bunch of times, but not my partners.
Appreciate it, Scott.
Well, thank you very much, everybody. I really appreciate it. And Scott, I appreciate you coming on and really sharing all this grateful information. I wanted just to let everybody know how to stay connected with us at the Mid-Atlantic Elevation OT. We have a Facebook page, we have a group set up, and we have a mailing address. Just make sure that you're on the mailing list. If you could copy down that information, send me a contact. You'll stay up to date with our next series of guests that we plan to bring on, and the topics and everything. Next week, Tuesday at 8 p.m., October the 5th, we're going to bring in Dr. Richard Harris. He's going to talk to us about nutrition and some of the common mistakes that people make with nutrition. So that's in advance of the season, during the season, things that you should build into your plan. So it's going to be very interesting. We're happy to have him. The last time he was here is very engaging. I would challenge you to sign up for that. And before we leave and make my final comments, I wanted to allow Bernard Clinton to say hello to everybody as my partner in this. And Bernard, if you could say a couple words, that'd be great.
Good evening, everyone. And thanks again, Scott. Really appreciate you carving out time for us and giving us a good format of some of the nuggets, as you say, that would help each and every one of us, even myself. I'm doing up some observing for the SEC, and some of the things that you brought out today are some of the things I can use, during that watching their games, and everything. Like, we can always learn, and I'm glad you're here tonight, and each and one of you today. I'm glad you're here this evening, and looking forward to seeing you on the next one.
Well, well said, Bernard. This is all about relationships. And Scott, we greatly appreciate your friendship, your mentorship, what you've done to the game, what you have brought. And we're all educators. We all want to pass along the things that we've learned and people that have touched our lives with the officials that are going to come behind us. That's the mission and purpose of what we're doing here. We're education, mentoring, training area. And Scott, on behalf of Bernard and myself, Mid-Atlantic Elevation Officials Training, we really greatly appreciate the time you spent with us tonight. And we wish you well as you approach the upcoming season. We hope your 29th season is a glorious season. I got the number right. And,
No, you didn't.
28.
Wait a minute. Is it 28 coming or 28
This is my 28th.
achieved?
This is going to my
28.
28th season. We had
got
camp already, so I'm in my 28th season.
You got it. All right. We'll go with that then. Stand corrected. All right, everybody. Good night and everything. Scott, thank you very much. We'll see you guys.